Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
So the Singapore Grand Prix finished a few hours ago, and what a race it was, with Ferrari seemingly rising again from the ashes and Mercedes, the team, making strategy errors. It was a race of highs for some and lows for others, so remember to subscribe, like and comment, follow me on Twitter, and let's discuss the Singapore Grand Prix of 2019. Leclerc started well and Vettel challenged Hamilton on the first lap. Elsewhere, Ricciardo, Kubica both hit George Russell and damaged his front wing, and Hülkenberg hit Sainz, heading for an ever-closing gap. He punctured both their tyres, they had to pit. Not a great advert for a driver who is struggling to find a race seat for 2020, with very few options left open to him. Between the first lap and the pit stops, a strange game of cat and mouse started to deliver, with Leclerc not driving to his full abilities and holding up the Mercedes, Red Bulls and teammate Vettel behind him, and the rest of the pack could keep within touching distance, thereby stopping the undercut from working. A genius strategy from Ferrari that seemed to catch Mercedes out, because when the midfield teams did pit and created a gap for the top cars to drop into, Ferrari pitted Vettel, who jumped Leclerc, and Mercedes just stayed out for way too long. When Hamilton did pit, he dropped behind Verstappen and left Giovinazzi in the lead. And that's how it stayed at the front, with Leclerc fuming that Vettel had jumped him. The other interesting thing from this race was Bottas being told by Mercedes to stay behind Hamilton after the pit stops. The team are now actively treating Bottas as number 2 driver. And I don't want to hear, oh, strategy. Bottas should be fighting for a world championship. That's not going to happen. Rosberg wouldn't have listened, and Mercedes have learned from that error that their 2 drivers fighting is not good for the team. And now Hamilton's newest rival isn't even allowed to overtake him. The end of the race was blighted by instances that brought out 3 safety cars. First, Grosjean and Russell got together and George ended up in the wall. This was Williams' first retirement of the year. After that, Stroll would hit the wall and pit for a new tyre, and teammate Perez would retire on track just 2 laps later, bringing the safety car out a second time. And then Kvyat would torpedo Raikkonen. Raikkonen retired with suspension damage at the first corner, safety car out again. And there was an interesting battle in the midfield, with Magnussen dropping back, a couple of good fights at the end of the field, and Hülkenberg being chased down by Giovinazzi. So Vettel won. I think that's important for next year. The Ferrari upgrade seems to have re-energised the German veteran, and this speaks volumes more for next year than the end of this one. Hamilton is 100 points ahead of Vettel and way more points than his nearest rival, which is not Bottas in second because he's not allowed. So we honestly have no fight for the end of this year. But if Ferrari can swing the momentum towards them at the end of this year and bring that to 2020, and a more confident Vettel is a dangerous weapon. And Leclerc may not be happy that he didn't get to win 3 races in a row, but he has proven he can be a champion competitor in a strong Ferrari. If he can be more consistent, then he's going to be up there as well. And hey, Red Bull have been closing all season with the Honda engine getting better and better. Maybe next year can finally be the year we have a year-long title fight between multiple drivers and not Hamilton winning and everyone else fighting for second. Now let's do something different. Let's run down the field and go driver by driver and see how they did. I'm going to score them out of 5, with 5 being awesome and 1 being what the hell was that. Starting with Ferrari, Vettel, 5 out of 5. Obviously he was quick enough to jump Leclerc on the undercut, worked through the traffic well and never looked troubled up front. 4 out of 5 for Leclerc. His qualifying lap was epic and he surely would have won himself if Vettel hadn't pitted first. He held off Verstappen without issue and had a good race. Hamilton, 2 out of 5. This was a poor race for Hamilton. He's already champion, so he doesn't need to push, I guess. But once out in front, he wasn't quick enough to stay ahead of the chasing pack. And once free, couldn't catch Verstappen. You expect more. Bottas, 2 out of 5 as well. Did nothing all race and acted like a good doggy when commanded to heel. Verstappen, 4 out of 5. This was a quiet race for the Dutchman, but he jumped Hamilton when he needed to and held him towards the end of the race for a podium. Albon, 3 out of 5. Good enough, he is being consistent, but is still just best of the rest. Norris, 5 out of 5. What more can you ask? A quiet race and scoring more good points for McLaren. Sainz 2 out of 5. Unlucky to be taken out by Hulkenberg at the start of the race, but didn't fight his way through the field and scored no points for the third race in a row. Gasly 4 out of 5. Scored points and raced well on a long run strategy. Kvyat 1 out of 5. Never looked to threaten the points and torpedoed Raikkonen towards the end, a poor race for the man who was doing so well earlier in the year. Hulkenberg 2 out of 5. Did well to recover and score points, but did take out Sainz and could have been better. Ricciardo 1 out of 5. Ruined his own race when he hit Gasly and punctured his tyre. Also lost out to a couple of cars when trying to pass Magnussen late on. Not a great race for the Australian. Giovinazzi 5 out of 5. Honestly the best we have seen of him so far. Did well in the lead on his long run on old tyres and overtook to get back to 10th and take a point. Showed what he has lacked all year on this performance. He deserves to be retained for next year. Raikkonen 3 out of 5. Did well enough until Kvyat took him out, but he was outside the points anyway. Grosjean 3 out of 5. No points again, but Grosjean was at the back for most of the race, but picked up places towards the end in the chaos. Magnussen 2 out of 5. Was in the points towards the end, but dropped back quickly when his tyres went off. Last finisher, and with fastest lap at Singapore for the second year in a row. Stroll 2 out of 5. Some good overtakes, but hit the wall and ruined his own race. Perez 3 out of 5. Would have probably scored a point if he hadn't broken down. Kubica 3 out of 5. Finished the race and not last, doing exactly what you expect. Russell 3 out of 5. First retirement and not entirely his fault. Still quicker than Kubica for a whole race and deserved to finish. One final thing, let's talk about the grid for next year. Hulkenberg is screwed. Grosjean is with Haas next year. Apparently they didn't want to pay what Hulkenberg was demanding. And with Red Bull saying no chance, and they'll probably keep the 4 drivers they already have, there are only 2 other seats available. One at Alfa Romeo, and it depends on whether they'll stick with Giovinazzi or not. Hulkenberg could score more points, but Giovinazzi's Ferrari's boy, and Ferrari are part of the same company as Alfa Romeo, so that is unlikely. Kubica did announce he will leave at the end of the year, and a Williams seat is available, but they need money, and Nicholas Latifi in Formula 2 has a better financial package, and will probably be number 1 choice. So Hulkenberg may be out of luck, and we may see a grid without the Hulkster for the first time since 2011, when he was unceremoniously dumped by Williams. We shall see anyway. That's all for Singapore. Next week we head to Russia. I'll be doing a roundup of the rest of the weekend's racing, including the final IndyCar race of the season, so subscribe and check that out. And most importantly, have a good one.